Hello, everyone. Welcome to Collapse Club, where our topic is today, what can we celebrate at this special time? I'm David Baum in Seattle, and my guest today is John Doyle from Brussels. Hello,
Hi,
John.
folks.
John is a philosopher, a futurist, and in his day job, works for the European Commission. What are you doing over there now, John?
I suppose, like everybody else, sort of preparing for Christmas. It's like I said, I love Christmas. I was with a friend the other day, and somebody was talking about, the true meaning of Christmas, and we were just laughing and sort of saying, God, take away all the artificiality, all the glitz and all the glisten. What? That's Christmas. It's like Shrek with the onions. Take away all the layers. I mean, there's something fantastically just silly about human beings doing this, and I have always loved it. So my four kids, who are a little bit far flung at the moment, will all be home for Christmas, and that's going to be great. They range in age from 32 to 22, and I mean, if the question led more to what the European Commission was doing, I mean, the European Commission is sort of doing what bureaucracies do, all that good left brain stuff, details about details, piling it all on.
I'm more interested in your Christmas. I congratulate you on your having your children home. The family seems like an important thing at this time. But you and I share an outlook that we call ourselves doomers. We are acutely aware of the trouble that the earth is facing now, and yet it's Christmas. And my question is, what can we celebrate at Christmas in this year of our Lord 2022?
Oh God, I think there's as much to celebrate now as there ever has been. You look at the I mean, to stay in the Christian mythology for a while, and why not? I'm a huge fan of many beautiful Christian mystics, and to stay in that Christian mythology, it's the Parousia was always intended to be proximate. Well, if you read the Gospels, you realize that Jesus was more or less saying, like, you got it, man, you got it. It's right here. 2,000 years later, people are still waiting for it. And my suggestion is that the second coming is always right here. It's the moment of revelation. It's the moment of understanding our connectedness to one another. It's the beauty of seeing the world as it is, rather than as Satan would have us construct it. It is the beauty of a wildly organic, sensual, even sexual exuberance, juxtapositioned with I don't know, compasses and set.
Oh no, John has frozen. Yikes, that's really embarrassing and troublesome.
A man known as the Messiah said is utterly and completely impractical. I mean, what kind of life advice is sell everything you own and follow me? Like, where? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it makes very little sense to the to the rational part of man. And as I sort of mentioned, when you ask me what I might be talking about, what I invariably talk about what's on my mind, and what's on my mind at the moment is the marvelous Jill Bolte Taylor and her whole brain living approach. I don't know if you know her story, but she was a Harvard neuroanatomist who suffered a massive left brain stroke, and the left brain being our sort of to paraphrase slightly, kind of our logical, methodical, sequential in time persona. And this disappeared, leaving her only with her right brain, which was her connectedness to others and to the universal. It took her 8 years to get out of it, and she even had to,
Well, we'll just be patient and get the message in blocks.
Thing, I don't find it difficult to talk about what we should celebrate, because I'm increasingly giving way to my childish in you must be as children, but my childish understanding that there is far much that I don't understand than that I do understand. And so life, while one draws breath, possibly even after one draws breath, is a most wondrous and strange invention. As Alan Watts always says, the real question is, why is there anything? Why isn't there just nothing? And people will be inclined to say, well, we're going back to nothing pretty quickly. Yeah, but what does that mean? We know the void was fruitful, so I don't, for some reason, I don't feel the pressure and the agony of discovery. Maybe it's because I've been in this space for as long as you, kind of understanding where it looks like everything is going. But we still get up in the morning. There's still so much to celebrate. We still have a tree to decorate this evening. So much to do. I'm happy.
I want to go back to the point you made at the beginning about the second coming being imminent, and
Yes.
essentially that the staying within, as you say, the Christian story, the salvation offered by or pointed to by Jesus is always available. It is essentially an eternal phenomenon, and the story of Jesus, who was God becoming man, in my view, is a metaphor for an eternal phenomenon, which is potential becoming real. But that is a fundamental process of the living cosmos that happens all the time. And it's not necessary or helpful to delimit it in history to this one person to whom it happened one time. What do you think?
I don't often get to say this, but I couldn't have said that better myself.
You're very kind. Thank you.
I mean, absolute perfection. And the thing that I found curious recently is that, you read the words of the Jewish Messiah, wow, and then you wonder, where did all this disappear in Enlightenment philosophy? So you take a look at Descartes, or you take a look at, his English homologues, or whoever they were at the time, and has the most dreadful stuff, this great clockwork universe ticking around and God reduced to a first cause or a big bang. Then you realize that there was an awful lot of other wonderful people thinking around. The same Henri Bergson, who won a Nobel Prize he died in 1944, I think. Marvelous French philosopher. Someone I've just discovered, Schelling, marvelous German philosopher, who much underread by people who think he was simply a stepping stone to Hegel and all that misery. Marvelous man who had connected beautifully with the East and saying things, look, we come out of the earth. Wow, the earth is the spirit. He has some wonderful sayings I just came across. Nature is spirit made visible, and spirit is invisible nature. And I think, whoa, this guy was good. And this is back in the 1700s. But, somebody in academia decided at some stage, no, we don't need him, and threw him away, And, but you realize, if you look with enthusiasm and I think an honesty, that it's, this word, this revelation, this resurrection is happening constantly all around us. It's marvelous. And I was struck by something the other day. With William Blake, who I adore, obviously, and who's the subject of the joint subject, along with Jill Bolte Taylor, of a marvelous book by a guy called Dominic Tweedy called "The God of the Left Hemisphere." Showing how one aspect of our personality is this kind of account bookkeeper. The poor old bookkeeper's got a job to do, but he domineers over the person who lives in the moment and is connected to all and parallel process the universe rather than sequentially ordering it in time. But Blake spoke about the kind of the revelation happening, I suppose the revelation happening through an improvement in sensual enjoyment. Now, My daughter would probably just tell me, Liz, I'm thinking of Lizzie. Liz would probably just say, "Oh, Dad, you just need to get in touch with your feelings," which, of course, is precisely what Blake was saying. It's just my daughter is smarter than Blake ever was, and I had my first couple of really deep experiences of this personally very recently. One I'm a little embarrassed about, so I probably won't talk about it. But the other was a really interesting one. So behind my house, there's lots of other houses, and there's kind of a house in a corner here that has a courtyard, and it's a student house. And on Thursday evenings, about 2 o'clock, when the students have drunk their third beer and are absolutely incoherently drunk, they go outside to smoke cigarettes and they talk really loud and they wake everybody up. And I had the strangest experience the other night. Right? I for the first time in my life, there was pure red and black anger. It wasn't associated with me, with how I thought I should feel. It wasn't associated with what I thought I should do. It was just present. You know, to go all Yoda. Anger there was, youngling. Anger there was. And anger there most certainly was. I mean, red, burning anger. And it was brilliant. I was, wow. Like, it wasn't me. The anger was present, made manifest through me. And with the use of Jill Bolte-Taylor's tool set, I was able to pose myself a number of questions. Okay, you know, what do you want to do? You want to go down and beat the crap out of them? Are you prepared to? How long are you prepared to go to jail just to beat the crap out of these little quacks? You know what I mean? Just lose it, you know? No. I mean, basically, they're just little drunk students. You know, they're not pedophiles who assaulted one of my daughters. Okay. But you want to sit here and zen? No, I don't feel zen. Okay, so what do we think we should do about it? Walked over to the window, opened the window, shouted down at them. They apologized and went back inside. And the anger left. And it got me to thinking. It got me to thinking about this improvement of sensual enjoyment. What does it mean if I say I got angry? Like, who is the I? And what was I getting? And was I observing somebody else being angry? And would that observer have observed somebody else if we wound up having a fight? And this is what I understand now about an improvement in sensual enjoyment, actually experiencing the totality of the emotion and then handling it. I mean, we sometimes people talk about experiences, whether, you know, in sex or in a very close, intimate contact with somebody else, where the two people disappear and there is the experience. So it's been raining all day in Brussels, for example, and it struck me very strongly, you know, the lunatic limitations of our language. It is raining. What is raining? We say it is raining because English is so structured that we have subject, object, and predicate, like most Western languages. Nothing is raining. Rain there is, youngling. Or rain. Or raining there is. But what is raining? And this sort of pseudo precision pulls us further and further away from reality, the actual feeling of what's actually happening. I've been astonished to find that there are languages where everything is a flow, where there are only verbs, where there are only nouns. This can work. So I'm not suggesting that we do that, but I am suggesting that, you know, language, for example, the sequential expression of what's going on with us is very much a left hemispheric thing. And a big part of our problem at the moment is this imbalance between our sense of wonder, joy, creativity, spirit, and connectedness, and the need to do the job, get it done. Yeah.
Let's apply your increase in sensual perception to the situation of the world as a whole. Oh, first of all, a little technical thing. Is it possible to tilt your camera down a little so your head goes up in the frame a little?
I'm just lying back a bit. I'm far too relaxed now. Oh, that's too much.
There we go. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm sure I'm getting
no comment.
Maybe you should just sit up. That's good.
Yeah. Ah, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
So instead of drunken students shouting at 3 a.m, we have various actors digging up oil and burning it to the detriment of all humankind, and causing a global sickness and catastrophe that threatens the well-being of basically everything that we know and everything that we love. So there are people who have opened the window and are shouting, shut up, and they won't shut up. They won't do it. They won't do anything good. So what emotion then is or comes or passes through us, and what the hell are we supposed to do about
it? I mean, and as always, you get right to the core of the issue. And funnily enough, I'm having a meeting tomorrow with a bunch of a much reduced bunch of people. I'm down to the bare bones. People who are prepared to talk about strange stuff. Oh, sorry, not strange stuff, but about difficult stuff. And it's really interesting because I have friends who say, right, this is what must be done in the energy markets. This is ridiculous that poor Europeans are freezing to death. We have to change the way wholesale electricity prices are. The basket mechanism, we have to bring back the basket mechanism rather than the marginal cost. Very technical. We can do this. And I've got other people sort of saying, no idea what you're talking about, but myself and the other girls are doing one of our retreats, and we're going to go out into the country and going to really connect with nature. Got really nice guys who've kind of one good friend who's has recently left the commission. He says, John, one way to treat Nazis: bullets in the head. I think we start shooting all the rich people. I've got other friends like, and of course, which is rather difficult because by most standards, we're quite wealthy. I'm not sure whether he intended to start with himself. I've got wonderful, wonderful friends in Extinction Rebellion who are currently doing time in UK jails for sticking their hands to a pedestrian crossing. Do maybe 3 or 6 months in jail. No access to computers or anything like that. Their approach being, let's bring the whole thing crashing down even sooner. I have no idea where I stand in all this. I no longer have any preconceived notion, nor do I have any goal where I might get. My immediate objective is to be as honest and open with myself and others as is manifest. In fact, it's wrong to say it's an objective, because that kind of puts a performing I in the way of the experience. I'm not sure I can answer the question in those terms. Because those are the terms that I have used my whole life. So take the country that I come from, Ireland. Big headline, excellent news for Irish farmers today. Somehow or other, we're going to meet our Paris targets. So I'm meeting Paris targets. May as well be sort of deciding to oppose Hitler now. But somehow we're going to meet our Paris targets, which is very largely about agriculture in our case, without cutting the size of the national herd. So everybody's happy. Now we've come up with some magical, accountancy system. Now, very few people will consider Irish farmers in the same kind of evil bracket as those people working for Exxon and Total and all the oil companies, but it's exactly the same thing. My good German friends very often say to me, no, we have to keep making cars. We must keep making quality cars. I said, why? Well, when we've solved all this, we'll still need automobiles. Okay. Could we do without them for about 10,000 years? Would that be a possibility? So I'm no longer privy. I'm no longer deluding myself to the little piece of reality I see. is some kind of lever that can make things happen. What I'm more interested in is what I might do the next time I find myself in the company of these people, telling me that we must dig oil here. So what I found very recently is I'm getting in. It's getting increasingly difficult to find gainful employment for me in my work, because I keep asking really obvious questions. So I can't really give too much details on this particular item, but let's say we're talking about, I work in the information technology field a lot of the time. So at the moment, there's a lot of talk about connecting with the with countries overseas, let's say, and we need to connect more so that there's better communications and that facilitates more trade. And it's called sustainable connectivity. I say, well, what's sustainable? Just kind of green internet, or just put a word in. No, so like you have a choice here. It's either sustainable or it's not. I mean, if you want to do something about emissions, the last thing we should be doing is promoting trade here. So what do you mean by, sustainable connectivity? The only connectivity that's sustainable is one telephone line between Indonesia and Europe, where we order maybe a shipload of something once a year. That's sustainable. Another 400 kind of fiber optic cables working at gigabits with loads of people kind of all connected to stuff and ordering things online. Sustainable. So I said, well, just put it. No, you put it, because I don't know what you mean. So I'm finding myself getting bounced from dossier to dossier as I ask fairly straightforward questions. And they're not difficult questions. It's like the anger thing, just appears with a degree of clarity. Blake talks a lot about cleansing the doors of perception. I'm not saying this has happened to me all the time. Most of the time I'm as confused and screwed up as ever I was, but I have moments of utter clarity. Like, what do you mean sustainable connectivity? Somebody tell me what this means. The single biggest thing you could do with information technology to save the planet is turn the fucking internet off. Planet saved. Not quite, but you will have this massive effect on all the things that we produce. My friends and I, well, how is Ireland supposed to survive? Well, remarkably simply, on the whole island, there's about 6 million people. We grow enough food to feed about 60 million, but we're in a couple of windmills, we're the windiest country in Western Europe. We could supply wind energy to all of Western Europe. So the question is, we don't need German cars. We don't need anybody's food. We don't need anybody's oil or energy. Why? But can such a change happen? I don't know, but I don't have a plan that I can kind of push forward. I think we should begin with, first of all, cattle we should reduce by 20%, because you wind up in this lunatic kind of, this crazed accountancy systems where we can absolutely prove we've done an incredible amount to reduce emissions, and yet they're going up all the time. There must be a leakage in the system somewhere. So I think for me, it's become more a question of, tell me what you mean. And as I say, I find myself getting moved from dossier to dossier, from sensitive things to. So I presume at some stage I'll just get thrown out the door. I don't have a plan. I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to collapse anything. I have a sneaking feeling stuff is happening on a plane that I don't get. Something like that.
That leads into my next question, which is, you seem to be having quite a bit of success with your personal journey, the opening of your own perception and understanding. And it sounds like you're facing some resistance or lack of traction when you talk about practicalities.
Yes.
So that leads that there's a philosophical question that goes there, or a moral question that I face, which is I feel like my understanding is growing and my personal, equanimity has new dimensions, etc. Not that I'm not a mess. Of course I'm a mess. But there are elements where things are okay, except I'm a white American man with enough money to live, and the society around me is fairly stable, et cetera, et cetera. And yet I perceive and I believe, or I hear about and I believe reports of people starving, dying, being imprisoned, tortured, just all the horrors of the human world. I hear about these.
Yes.
And the question that privileged people like you and I face, I think, is what is the proper relationship and balance between our own enlightenment, if you will, and our duty to our fellow human beings and the natural world?
Again, God, I love talking to you because I get so many easy questions. But it's perfection. So I was with my therapist earlier today. Glorious woman, just love her. And I was sort of saying, I'm feeling so liberated. I mean, this is so good. I'm not actually, I don't feel I need to save the world anymore. She said, well, that's really, really good, and that's great. Then we got on to a few more things. And so there's this meeting of people tomorrow. And what did you, okay. And I said, oh yeah, there is one other thing. The two old SCF, Sans Domicile Fixe, homeless people who live in the park about a mile from where I am. Yeah, I've been working with a couple of people to try and get them into a place, and they keep not making appointments, and they're all over the place. They make me so mad. I get so mad at homeless people. How good am I? And so this morning I knew they had an appointment, so I get up really early, right? I make them coffee and I head off the mile into the park, and I say, guys, honestly, John, we're up. There's coffee out here now. Fucking make sure you get the social worker. I'll fucking kill you myself. And so I'm telling all this to my social worker, she had much harder job. So I'm telling all this to my therapist, and she starts laughing and says, this is the John who doesn't need to save the world anymore. But, oh, yeah. Says, who are you actually talking about here, John? Yeah, it's me, isn't it? My little beat up, wounded child. Yeah. Okay. Then she made me kick back and get back in touch with this little guy, and I bawled my eyes out for about half an hour. So I have this increasing sense that there isn't any progress. I'm not actually getting any better. I just find myself in a moment, and the moment flows through me. And then I'm lucky enough to meet you, or I talk to Monica, therapist, or I get mad at the guys in the park for not keeping a rendezvous. Two utterly hopeless cases, that I just can't stand the thought of them dying of the cold, and that's me. They've got every right to die of the cold if they want to. But there's a kind of a deeper realization that I can't buy into the assumption that you make. And I mean, I think we've both traveled a long way, but I don't think that means we've gotten anywhere. It's a bit like Lala's beautiful poem, "Oh Lord, I have traveled so far in search of you, and it was only when I gave up and turned around that there you were beside me all the time." Like you might travel all your life, sure, man. Yeah, but I mean, it's immediately accessible to you, and what strikes me really is that it's. My daughter sent me something. Amelie sent me something about Rumi the other day and said, yesterday I was something and I tried to change the world. Today I am wise and tried to change myself. So it's that connection. Much the harder job for me is staying in touch with the reality, with with the universe as it expresses itself through me, not impeding that. And almost anything I can add on top of that is necessarily trimming. You know, if the universe is, if I am allowing the universe to flow as it should through me, well, then things should work out the way they are going to work out. And that's just the way it is. So, for example, as a child, I remember having a sudden shock of realization when somebody was telling me about Gandhi and what a great man he was. I couldn't figure it out, but I had this notion that it was people like Gandhi, Lala, that wonderful poet, poetess, I suppose, all these extraordinary people, that it was their synchronicity, their synchronization rather with the universe that actually kept the world, that kept everything working the way it is. I don't understand the mechanism, but that doesn't mean that the work to hand is not terribly local, terribly personal. You know, just the two guys in the park or the stupid meeting tomorrow. None of this makes any sense to me. Makes any sense to my rational left mind, but I spent enough time now working in utterly insane bureaucracies, doing utterly insane things. I mean, well, one of my favorite things at the moment is looking at the correlation between COP conferences and increases in emissions or concentrations. Stop having these conferences. Every time we have a conference, there's a huge increase, please. And I mean, it's not just a correlation, it's actually clearly causal. It's really spooky. So yeah, I'm not trying to avoid the question. And I think you do. I think you do what the universe puts in front of you. Yeah.
Okay.
Not very satisfactory. Oh, okay.
No,
I'll give you another example. I got a good friend next
Okay.
door, right? Sorry, not good friend. She's 3 or 4 houses up. She's a wonderful lady, mad as a hatter. She used to be a what you call it, a social worker herself. And in utter frustration as the cold spell approached here, I started asking my neighbours. So I've gotten to know an awful lot better since COVID. You know, so we live in a little place, and it's kind of a mix. I've got to know lots of people. So I was asking the plumber, you know, is there anywhere I can put these 2 guys so they don't freeze to death, right? And he says, "Oh, you got to talk to Sabine." I says, "Who's Sabine?" "You know, the lady in the wheelchair." "Oh, right." So I went up to Sabine. Now she's got 1 leg, and she's got the most horrendous lisp, and she's got all sorts of health problems, and she lived on the streets for years. And she's not currently working as a social worker. She's on invalidity, but she turns out to be kind of a real help in the kind of, because she does an awful lot of work for the homeless people just around this little area. And she knows everybody in the system. So we're trying to do stuff for them. But she's also pulling me back and sort of saying, "John, they don't go to the meetings. You're just going to drive yourself insane. Okay, you have to step back because these people maybe have been on the streets for 15 or 20 years. You know, she lived on the streets for 7. And there's a world of difference between somebody who's been, say, 6 months and somebody who's been 20 years. And she's taught me so much, particularly about, bizarrely enough, looking after my own health. Because I was going crazy with these guys. And says, "That's great, John. So you're now shouting at homeless people in the park because you're not going to meetings." Oh, what am I doing? So there's a kind of a symmetry to it that I don't really understand. It's okay that I don't understand. It's a bit like, you know, twinned particles in quantum mechanics. You know, how does, okay, these two things, I'm probably using the wrong term. I don't mean twinned, I mean entangled particles. You know, so one's on one side of the universe, and the other's on the other side of the universe, and they move at exactly the same time, but nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. Well, that's only a mystery if you think, you know, the particles are you know, the bits that are sticking up here of my fingers, you know. But if it's all connected underneath, it's the same thing, you know. I mean, why are we so stupid that we have to overlay our idiotic 3-dimensional model? Okay, we see the hump. It's like, you know, moving your fingers along a sheet or something. Yes, of course the 2 particles move because they're connected in a way you don't get. I mean, why is this difficult for us to accept? Yeah.
Well, I think that's a very important question. Why is it that difficult for us to accept? What is the veil between the dark world of the potential and the bright world of the manifest? It's the most important question in philosophy, and we humans have been bashing our heads against it for a long time. To reach toward the end and to pose you another big question, and to again finally, as Christmas approaches, talk about the Christ story. Christ not only came and lived and died, but he, in the story, he did that for a particular reason. There was a purpose to his mission, and that was to redeem the sins of the human race. That somehow we are burdened with sin, with evil, with shortcoming, with something that is labeled sin. And that in the Christian story, you have to swear allegiance to this fellow in order to be relieved of that and achieve what? Eternal life. So even if one gives up the allegiance to the particular name, nevertheless, the overcoming of sin, or I think of it as separation, the overcoming of that, separation. To dwell in eternal life or whatever, that seems like sort of what we're doing. And this time of the year, when the sun is returning from its lowest point and heading back into the sky, that's our festival. That's what we celebrate. So I guess I'd like to ask you just to look out at the sin of the world, and explain how those of us, let's say that we're saved, let's say that we've done that thing. What is the appropriate attitude towards sin, John?
The appropriate attitude towards good, evil, sin, or righteousness is to understand that they are poles of a magnet. It's the North and the South Pole. You don't have one without the other. I honestly think that's mostly what the Christ figure was doing, sort of saying, it doesn't matter. It's all gonna be okay. Void, presence, void. It goes on. The notion that we can have up without down, the crest of a wave without a trough of a wave, good without evil, pleasure without pain is nonsense. So I think rather than striving for, as I say, the crest of a wave that has no trough, the trick really is to accept, to begin to see what actually is and begin to participate fully in that isness. I mean, I could spend an awful lot of time talking about the dangers of my, red, black anger the other night. I'm thrilled with it because it was such a powerful and immediate experience, and it was deeply felt. And that's okay. And I know I also feel deep love, deep attraction, deep pain, deep joy. That's what it is. And I think that's what I think the embracing of that is the crucial first step. I was saying to somebody recently that if you look at the structure of the human brain and the kind of reptilian stem, and then the limbic system built on top of that, and then the cortex on top of that, it becomes very obvious that there's one thing that Jill Bolte-Taylor repeats ad infinitum, and it is that we are feeling creatures that have developed the capacity to think. And I think that's hugely important. It goes back to Blake's improvement of sensual enjoyment. If you can't get the feelings in the right place, the brain doesn't really do a whole lot. It possibly only gets to bail you out of an awkward situation. It's like being a chef with the finest ingredients, your brain, but you're working in a filthy, rat-infested kitchen. You are going to make people sick. If you can't situate what you feel, and those feelings are whole, if you can't find yourself in a safe place to exchange with others, where they're safe and they're feeling safe, the function of your brain is virtually irrelevant, because you will get nowhere, as I've proven in 25 years with the European Commission. So what I'm suggesting is, I don't think you can drill down from the cortex through the limbic system down to the reptilian system and get human beings to behave differently. I think what we can do is admit the primacy of and embrace what we actually feel about the world we're actually present in. And from that point, move forward. As I said, I didn't kill anyone the other night. I think that's probably good.
If we accept that there are troughs with peaks and darkness with light and hatred with love, then do we not then commit ourselves to being people or beings who indulge in hatred and lust and killing and the bad things, the sin? How are we supposed to maintain our self-image as humans if we accept that we encompass both ends of the polar reality?
I would say both ends of the polar reality there are. Didn't say anything about a self-experiencing it. I think that's the fascinating thing when you're in those moments of deep love, deep joy, sexual ecstasy, fury, that there's a sense of purity in that that excludes the I or the observer or anything else. There just is the experience. Life is the experience of living. That's what it is. It isn't anything more. And I think the more deeply that we can engage with that, with the experiential, the somatic, you might say, that feeling it from your toes. All the stupid songs say it. You feel the tingle in your toes, the tingle in your hair. I mean, they get it right, but we just forgotten how to see it. It's become banal. And I think a lot of, revelation is no more than pulling the veil from in front of our own eyes, isn't it? And sort of saying, oh, bloody hell, it was there all the time. There isn't anything new. It'll always be lust, love, joy, pain. It'll always be those things. And if there is any progression, I'm for the time being, I'm happy enough to take the word of my daughter and say, that'll happen through I get in touch with your feelings, Dad. Okay.
Lovely. All right, John, it's been wonderful to talk to you. So much fun.
As always. Yeah.
Finally, just last word from you. How are you going to celebrate the season in your home?
Celebrate this season. I become myself and my wife have become huge fans of a little yoga class, literally 50 yards down our street. And this is, you love this. The guy is, I was always kind of embarrassed about yoga because I'm a bit stiff. I was sporty and have a few injuries, and I go to these places and these women are sitting beautifully cross-legged and I have to sit on a goddamn towel. And I'm always embarrassed, right? So I get down to this place, this lady, another neighbor that I met. She said, come on, John, you really got to go to this. So I go to it, and the guy is completely blind. So I have found a blind yoga master to teach me. And the only thing he can really correct is my breathing, although sometimes he comes over and feels what I'm doing, and it's heaven. So at the moment, on a big yoga kick, we'll have a big traditional Christmas because the kids all like it, even though myself and my wife are now vegan, so it's hilarious, cooking turkey and ham and all this kind of stuff. And we're eating Brussels sprouts, but it's great. So we'll do this with the 4 kids and my best friend who lives alone here in Brussels. So a shout out to Colin Joyce, who would come over and be entirely inappropriate all through Christmas, and so it'll be great.
Well, happy Christmas to you and your family.
And to you, David. It's been a real pleasure as always. I'll as soon as the link goes up, I'll publish it for on Facebook and everything else as well. Thank you, my friend. It's been a joy. Happy,
I'm sorry.
to you. Happy holidays to you and all yours. The work you do has transcends any meaning you and I can understand. Keep it up.
Thank you. This has been Collapse Club. That was John Doyle from Brussels. I'm David Baum in Seattle. Until we meet again, farewell.